So once you've documented those processes and created the checklists, now we need to put ourselves in a different frame of mind and say, how do I improve upon these?
I love bookkeeping.
Hey, it's Ben Robinson and welcome back. Now, in a previous segment, we talked about how you document your processes. If you haven't watched that one, then please go and do that and follow the instructions. Learn from me, from my mistakes that I made, because this is going to make your life so much easier in serving your clients. So once you've documented those processes and created the checklists, now we need to put ourselves in a different frame of mind and say, how do I improve upon these? Now, I encouraged you in that previous video to just do the process, whatever it is, and you screen record it, you speak it, you get the Word file back from rev.com, and now we have the checklist. And so somebody could come in, again, the standard is a 16-year-old, unless something is a 5 complexity. You know what I'm talking about from the previous lesson. This is where you would want to come in and say, okay, how can I improve my processes? Here's one of the traps that I see that people have all the time in documenting their processes. They try to improve them and document them at the same time. And that's a recipe for disaster. And here's why. Because look, you're doing something that you've never done, right? And documenting your processes. You are experiencing with new technology. There's just a lot of different planes. And so usually when we get that way, we get very frustrated, right? I know that I do things that way. So if I need to do something, let's say that I was going to take on process, management. If I was going to take on doing something like that, I wouldn't try to layer on a piece of technology in addition to doing this. I would want to do it with technology or something that I'm already familiar with, like a spreadsheet. So that's one of the frustrations. So we are clearly distinguishing between documentation of processes and improving them. Okay, so just like we do when we're talking about advisory services, we need to set aside time, good brain time, right? So when are you at your best intellectually? For me, it's 3 to 4 hours after, or an hour after I wake up for about the next 3 to 4 hours. Kind of right when I'm filming this right now, because it takes a lot of bandwidth, whatever you want to call it. I guess it could be brain width. Who knows? I just made up that word. Now, thank you very much, Webster. But, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of energy for you to talk about improving the processes. So what we want to do is we want to go back to that video that we created and we want to watch ourselves do it. And while we're watching ourselves doing it, I want you to look at the documentation that you got, that Word document, wherever you have it. So you're watching yourself doing it. Okay. And I know it's surreal to listen to yourself. I do not like listening to myself. I have a rule around here that says if you're listening to my video, my audio, you have to have headphones in if I'm around, because I don't want to hear myself. But it is kind of weird. But after we get over that notion, what we're doing is we're saying, where are the cracks? Okay. We can't do this right after we've documented the process. We can't do this right after we've done the process. We need to have as new eyes as possible. And I'll talk about another trick that we can have here in just a second, but we need to look at it and go, all right, is there a better way that I could do this? Is there a faster way? Is there a piece of technology that I could be doing? Okay. So this is all about efficiency. We'll talk about effectiveness in a different lesson, but right now we're talking about getting the process done in a much more expeditious manner so that you can get more done in less time and you deliver a better product. But you're going through and you're saying, okay, here are 3 places that I think that I could gain efficiencies. Or here is something that I've heard about, an app that's out there, but this is not about technology and it's not about apps. Okay, it's about the process, because apps come and go, technology comes and goes. These processes are going to remain solid. The thing that you use, let's say that 10 years ago you were documenting this and the meeting that you were having with your client was done via Skype. Well, most of us don't use Skype anymore. Most people use Zoom or something like that. So the piece of technology changes, but the process, delivering this to your client, is still the same. So don't get infatuated with the technology and the apps, right? That's a trap to fall into. What we're just looking for is the better way to do it. And then we say, all right, is an app appropriate here? Is a piece of technology going to help me? So we're going through, we're looking at all of this and we're saying, okay, here are the places that I think that I can improve. Here's a step that could be eliminated. Here's something else that I can do to make sure that the quality is there. And that's where we start from. Now, the second place that we start from after we've looked at that is that where are the bottlenecks? Where are the struggle points in our processes? So if you're working with others, this is pretty easy to identify. Let's say that you have a process and continually you're having to give review notes back to your staff, your team member, your contractor, whatever the case may be. So that's probably an indication that if you're doing it over and over with multiple people, that it's a process problem and not a person problem. Okay. That's where we want to go immediately to that process and say, hey, what is at fault here? Where can we improve? How can I make sure that that's not going to happen again? All right. Now, we won't talk about the person in there. What we're talking about and focusing on here is that process. So that's the second place, right? You're looking at it by yourself and you're saying and asking yourself, how can I do this better? How can I do this quicker? How can I be more efficient? And then the second place we just talked about, right? We're going to go through and say, where are the bottlenecks? Where am I having problems? Where am I giving review notes? That's the second thing. And the third thing, and probably the most powerful way, is to have somebody else review your process. Now, this typically is not somebody within your organization. It's somebody outside. So another bookkeeping buddy, right? Somebody who has their own business, somebody who is going through what you're going through. They have processes. They're somebody that you would want to follow. I always like having somebody that's at least one, if not 5 steps ahead of me, to learn from, to gain experience from, because that's the very best place. And so if you're finding somebody who's really good at processes, that's really good to have them review it because they have experience. If I were to look at your process, I could probably figure out a better way for you to do it just because I'm not within your organization. I don't do the process the way that you do it every single day. Having some outsider that knows what in the heck he's talking about or she's talking about is probably the very best way for you to gain efficiencies on the process. Okay. So having an outsider who knows what they're doing, very important. You going and looking at them. These are wonderful things. And then also looking at the bottlenecks right there. Now let's talk about the continuation, the perpetual review of your processes. This is not a one and done. This is a continual evolution. So what you need to do is you need to have a process control document, a spreadsheet that says, here's all my processes. There's a link to them, a hyperlink. I won't go into how to do that because you know how to do that. Here's a link to them so that we can see all my processes. And then here's the last time that it was revisited. Here's the last time that I reviewed it. Here's the last updates that were made so that you or anyone in your organization or anybody that's new that's coming aboard could take a look at that and know, hey, this needs to be updated. We need to look at this again. I recommend that you, on the critical processes, the ones that really turn the dial, that you look at those at least every 90 days. And just set up a reminder, right, in your calendar to say, hey, check out the processes 3 months from now, these critical processes. The other ones that are less critical, every 6 months, at least every year for those. Very important that we do that and that we continue to refine them. Now, the other place that you find some great ways to improve is from your team. Empower your team. I don't really like that word, but say to your team, hey, part of the responsibility that you have here is to question how we do things, to always be asking yourself, how could I do this more efficient? How can I deliver a better service? And listen to them. Now, this could come from green people that don't know anything about doing books. It could come from seasoned professionals. A lot of times good things come from people who are totally outside of our profession because they've done something in a different industry. So always listen with an open mind, but make sure that one of the charges that you have for everybody who works with you is always question, how can we do this better? Never say, well, that's the way that we've always done it. Status quo is a bad thing around our organization, and it should be around yours too, because it's a continual refinement. So that is process improvement. Process documentation, process improvement. This is going to give you sanity in your life. Again, this is Ben Robinson. I appreciate you listening to this that's all about process improvement. Head on over to ilovebookkeeping.com. There, you're going to find all of the shows, the notes, and some other great goodies that we have for you there. Now, if you'd like to be a guest on the I Love Bookkeeping show, there is a link that says Be a Guest. Go in there and we'll walk you through the process of getting on the show. And finally, to discover more about our programs, go to the courses page on the ilovebookkeeping.com site. There you have it, another great episode of I Love Bookkeeping. Thank you for being a proud listener, and thank you for being a bookkeeping professional. Enjoy the rest of your week.
I love bookkeeping. Here's a little shout to all my friends working hard at keeping the books. You want to change your life, you want to grow that biz, it's not as hard as it looks. Be a money guide, a profit coach, step up your game and see